But we got David on the line. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
What do you got for me?
Yes, so I'm a student here at UT, and me and my roommate have philosophical discussions pretty frequently, and one of the issues we tend to run into is the atheist tends to almost has to assume that using reason and logic is like reasonable, whereas well, my roommate's the atheist, and I guess I'd say I'm the theist, and I usually end up arguing the side of the coin that says reason isn't the highest good, and that sometimes we have to make unreasonable assumptions, and so.
So is this a take on the transcendental argument for the existence of God, or are you just making the case that there are times when we have to rely on something greater than reason to make decisions?
No. I'm not using the transcendental argument.
Okay.
I guess I'm not exactly sure.
That's okay. I just wanted to clarify where we were going because I wanted to understand you. It could go two ways. So continue.
Yeah. So I guess then what ends up happening most of the time is we both just disagree on our axioms. Like where we start determines where we end up going. And so, like the modes of logic you can take to argue your case for either the existence of a God or not, or whatever it is we're talking about, really tends to swing on where you start. You know. So
who's got the presupposition? What's the presupposition that he has that you disagree with, and vice versa?
The logic and reason is always a good thing.
I don't know that I'd phrase it that way. I'm not even sure that I agree with that. I mean, I believe that it's true, but I don't necessarily think that that's an axiom that you have to base anything off of. I tend to begin with kind of simpler axioms around, starting with things like Descartes, that I exist and that I experience some reality which I have to make sense of. So it only makes sense. The only way that I can do that is to use the tools that are most reliable. And evidence and reason, which get folded up into the scientific equation, are the most consistently reliable method for coming to an understanding about reality. I'm not even aware of any other way of knowing that would qualify, that provides anything that's demonstrable or useful. So maybe I kind of am agreeing with him, but I'm not using that as my premise. Why is it that what's your justification for the premise that it's not?
Well, I guess it's kind of difficult because you run into a situation where you're justifying a metaphysical reality, the existence of God, with almost a desire, like the desire for there to be an afterlife.
Yeah, your position does that. The other one doesn't.
Oh yeah, completely.
Okay. I was going to say, if he's all logic and reason and is justified a metaphysical God, he needs to call in. But go ahead.
Well, I guess you can't really disagree with how much progress science has given us, but I guess at some point you wonder whether the human position, whether we want to leave ourselves in the situation where all we have is making progress on Earth and not getting beyond that.
Okay. Let me hit two quick points, and I hope I don't forget the second one while I'm doing the first one. It doesn't matter how much progress science has made. It doesn't.
Isn't that what you just used as your justification?
What I did was I was talking about that I consider this the most reasonable course of action because it has proven itself to be over the entire course of history. What I'm saying now is that with regard to kind of what your objection was, how much science is provided for us doesn't matter, because at the beginning we have this question about, let me find some explanation for this observation. We'll just say the existence of everything. Without science, I'm not in the position that other answers or other explanations have become more likely. I'm in the position of I don't know. I'm in a non-position. I have no good way of determining what the answer to that is. It's afterwards, after we get to this point where we have science and reason and we have a good foundation to build up knowledge and understanding that is consistent and reliable, okay, now you can say that this method here seems to work all the time, We haven't found any other way of knowing. We haven't found any way to disprove it. So now that ends up working as a foundation. But before that, like let's say there was no scientific explanation for gravity. At the time in existence when there's no explanation, that's it. There's no explanation. It doesn't mean that angels pull the pen to the ground becomes a better explanation than alternate theories. You have no way of discerning which one comes out.
Oh, of course. I think Richard Dawkins came to us at UT, and he made a very similar point just a couple weeks ago. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So you're right. I do think that, to some extent, saying a method that is useful and continually yields good results, that it owns respect in some sense. But when we're getting to questions that are almost, you say, beyond that, questions of why is there gravity? Because we can explain gravity mathematically.
I don't think why questions are valid. There's two objections you're making. One is that we're talking about science can't possibly explain the supernatural. I mean, science, just by default, is based on philosophical naturalism. So it can't possibly explain the supernatural. But my thing is, why would anybody think that anything is supernatural? Why would you think that anything supernatural exists? I mean, it's not like there's any evidence for it. So that objection to what science can't do is one thing that I'd pose is, well, science can't answer this. Yes, but that isn't a real thing. That isn't something that needs an explanation. Until you demonstrate that there's some phenomenon where there's no reason to explain it. I mean, you might as well be saying that science can't tell me why Vargulthrush on this other planet do this. We don't even know anything. We don't know what any of that means or what. There's no there. And the same. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
well,
I've talked all day.
I guess the thing is, though, you're judging whether something exists on actual evidence.
No. I'm not making the decision that something doesn't exist. I'm responding to a claim that it does. If you tell me God exists, and I say, okay, great. What reason do you have to think that God exists? And if you can't present a convincing evidence argument for the claim, then I reject it. That's very different from accepting the contrary claim that gods don't exist. I do happen to accept that myself, but that's for different reasons, and it's a different position. There's theism, and then atheism is everything that's not theism. And that includes agnosticism in the colloquial sense and anti-theism or strong atheism. So I'm not... What you believe there's a God? Why?
Well, so all the sorts of evidence I would give, you would reject. So I personally have not had any such supernatural experience, but many Christians
so why do you
I know
find
do.
If you know that I'd reject that evidence, and I don't know, maybe you think that I'm making a mistake and whatever, but why do you find that evidence convincing? If it's enough to convince you, why shouldn't it also convince me?
Well, I think the reason it doesn't convince you is because you've restricted yourself to natural evidence, which you yourself said before.
Right.
Is confined to...
But isn't that justified until somebody presents something that's not natural evidence?
But doesn't it seem like taking your position would keep you from ever accepting any evidence? Because they would say the sorts of evidence I have isn't of the scientific sort. It's not repeatable in the way science expects things.
You still have to make a demonstration that your evidence even exists.
But, well, unfortunately, this sorts of evidence, once again, I'm saying I have never felt something like this. This is why I'm figuring and tottering between atheism and theism. But many Christians do say that I've had a personal experience.
Right.
And that's not something you can present to other people.
Absolutely.
It's something a scientist would ever accept.
And I'm fine with that.
I'm sorry?
I'm fine with that. If somebody says that I believe in God because I've had a personal experience, that's great. I haven't had that personal experience, so it doesn't count for me, but I believe that they're justified. And if I had some kind of personal experience that I could, confirm and not dismiss as, something else, I'd be justified in that belief too. I have no problem at all with saying that the individual is justified. But Thomas Paine, who I won't actually quote, made this, or no, it was either Paine or Hume, made the point that revelation is necessarily first person only. Revelation is first person. To everybody else, it's hearsay.
I like that.
I did too. But yeah, I'm fine with people who believe for that reason. But however, I think you can go to build a logical argument out of that, which is so many people who tell me that they believe for that reason, that they've had a personal experience, will also say, and you can have that personal experience too, and here's all you have to do. And I mean, Ray Comfort does this crap all the time of, all you need to do is hit your knees and pray and be sincere, and God will reveal himself to you. Well, you know what? I was a sincere believer for the vast majority of my life. I did believe, I did think I had some experiences kind of like that. I have hit my knees and sincerely asked, and it didn't happen. So the only conclusion I can come to is that either you're lying, you're mistaken, or your God doesn't like me. In any case, there's no reason for me to believe. It's fine for that individual, though.
I think that's a logically acceptable position. But I guess I do tend to run into atheists who don't think that sort of position is viable. So I guess there's that. I had one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick.
I got a minute and a half.
Oh, wow. What was it? Oh, what do you think about more militant atheists? Do you, I don't
think any such thing exists. I think that's a catchphrase, militant atheist, fundamentalist atheist. I think it's a phrase that people are tossing around to kind of disparage those of like myself. I mean, I would be in the militant category if you went around and find the Christians specifically who are labeling people as militant atheists, they'd put me on that list.
So I guess I was thinking more people like, say, Richard Dawkins, who believe religion it's not just illogical, but bad for society. And so he devotes his life to trying to, I guess, eliminate it. Or I guess I don't even know Richard Dawkins well enough to say.
Damn near everything. Thanks to the crew. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to putting up with me doing the show by myself. Thanks to everybody who showed up in the studio. We'll be down at El Arroyo here in about 30 minutes. It's on 5th Street. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. And there'll probably be somebody with me. Blah, blah, blah. I'm out of breath. See you then.